The cabin was calm as the plane cruised through a clear blue sky. Daylight poured through the windows and passengers relaxed in their seats. No one expected trouble on a quiet afternoon flight. Then everything changed in seconds. A loud, arrogant passenger stood up and began shouting. His voice cut through the cabin like a blade. He complained about his seat, his space, his status. He wanted attention and he wanted control. Across the aisle sat Steven Seagal. Quiet, composed, focused. He wore simple clothes and kept his eyes forward. He did not argue. He did not react. He did not engage. The arrogant man mistook silence for weakness. He mocked Steven openly. He called him old. He laughed and insulted him in front of everyone. Passengers watched uncomfortably. Some looked away. Others reached for their phones. Flight attendants hesitated, unsure how fast things could escalate. Then the man crossed the line. He stepped closer. He leaned in. He shoved Steven hard in the chest. The plane shook. Gasps filled the cabin. A child cried. Someone screamed for help. The attacker felt powerful. He believed he had found an easy target. A quiet man. An older man. A man who would not fight back. What he did not know could change his life forever. Steven Seagal slowly stood up. Not angry. Not rushed. Completely calm. His eyes locked on the attacker. The energy in the cabin shifted instantly. The noise faded. The air felt heavy. In that moment something felt wrong. Passengers sensed it before they understood it. This was not fear. This was control. The arrogant passenger raised his fist. Still smiling. Still confident. Still unaware. He had no idea who stood in front of him. He did not know this man was a martial arts champion. A master of discipline. A man trained to end fights without chaos. The attacker swung. And time seemed to stop. Flight attendants froze. Passengers held their breath. Phones captured the moment. What happened next would be talked about for years. A lesson delivered in silence. A truth revealed without words. Inside that bright daytime cabin, one man learned the cost of arrogance. And everyone else witnessed the power of calm strength. This was not just a fight. This was a warning. Never judge strength by silence. Never mistake humility for weakness. Because sometimes the quietest man on the plane is the most dangerous one of all. It was a bright daytime flight scheduled to depart just after noon. The sky outside was clear and calm. Sunlight streamed through the large cabin windows. The airport buzzed with routine movement and quiet announcements. Inside the plane the mood was ordinary and relaxed. Business travelers checked emails and reviewed documents. Families helped children into their seats. Couples whispered about destinations and plans. Flight attendants moved through the aisle with practiced calm. Overhead bins opened and closed. Seatbelts clicked into place. The hum of the aircraft filled the background. Nothing about this flight felt unusual. Steven Seagal boarded like any other passenger. No rush. No spotlight. No recognition. He wore simple daytime clothes. A plain jacket. Comfortable jeans. Headphones resting over his ears. He did not look around for attention. He did not speak loudly. He did not signal status or importance. To most people he looked like a regular traveler. Quiet. Reserved. Mindful of his space. He nodded politely to a flight attendant. Took his seat. Placed a small bag under the seat in front of him. And sat back calmly. There was no security escort. No special announcement. No upgraded seat drama. Just another man on a daytime flight. A few rows away sat a very different kind of passenger. From the moment he boarded, his presence dominated the aisle. He spoke loudly to no one in particular. Complained about the line. Complained about the delay. Complained about his seat assignment. He snapped at a flight attendant. Questioned her authority. Demanded better service. When she tried to calm him, he rolled his eyes and laughed. He shoved his bag into the overhead bin without care, nearly hitting another passenger. When asked to be careful, He scoffed. He believed the plane existed for his comfort. As passengers settled, his voice continued to cut through the cabin, mocking accents, commenting on appearances, making rude jokes. Some people stared. Others pretended not to hear. Parents covered their children's ears. Flight attendants exchanged quiet looks. They knew the type. Loud, entitled, easily offended. Steven remained silent, headphones on, eyes forward. The loud passenger noticed him. At first it was just glances, then smirks, then whispered remarks to anyone listening. He laughed about quiet people, mocked those who kept to themselves, called them weak. Steven did not react. That silence bothered him. The louder the man spoke, the calmer Steven appeared, and that contrast fueled irritation. The loud passenger leaned into the aisle, making comments meant to provoke, looking for validation, looking for dominance. Steven did not acknowledge him. Passengers around them felt the tension growing, the kind that sits heavy in the air, the kind that does not need words. The engines powered up slowly. The safety video began. Seatbelts fastened across the cabin. Still the loud passenger complained. About legroom. About respect. About how people should act around him. Steven stayed composed. Breathing steady. Posture relaxed. He had learned long ago that control begins inside. Backhand index pointing right. Comment below where are you watching from. And respect to everyone who stays calm in public places. As the plane prepared for takeoff, the contrast was clear. One man needed noise to feel strong. The other needed nothing at all. And soon, that difference would change everything. The tension that had been building finally broke. The arrogant passenger leaned forward and slammed his knee into the seat ahead. Once, then again. Harder. The seat shook violently. Steven felt the impact but did not turn around. He remained still, breathing slow, eyes forward. The man laughed, enjoying the reaction of nearby passengers. He pressed the call button repeatedly, demanding attention, demanding control. When a flight attendant approached, he waved her away. His focus had shifted. He lifted his drink, looked directly at Steven, and tipped the cup. Liquid spilled down Steven's shoulder, soaked his jacket, dripped onto the floor. Gasps spread across the cabin. A woman covered her mouth. A child asked what was happening. The man smirked, pretending it was an accident. But his eyes told the truth. Steven slowly removed his headphones. He wiped his shoulder calmly. Then he turned his head slightly. His voice was low, steady, controlled. Please stop. That was all he said. The request only fueled the arrogance. The man burst into laughter, loud and sharp. He stood up quickly, blocking the aisle, drawing every eye in the cabin. You hear this guy? He thinks he can tell me what to do. Passengers froze. No one spoke. No one moved. The man leaned closer, shouting insults inches from Steven's face. Mocking his age, mocking his silence, mocking his calm. Steven did not respond. He remained seated, hands relaxed, posture unchanged. That calm felt like an insult. The man lost control. He reached down and grabbed Steven by the collar. Fingers tight, knuckles white. The fabric pulled. The sound echoed. Time seemed to stop. Flight attendants screamed for him to let go. Passengers stood halfway from their seats. Phones trembled in shaking hands. The cabin fell into a stunned silence. The kind that feels heavy. The kind that presses against the chest. Steven finally stood. Slowly, deliberately. His eyes met the man's. Not with anger. Not with fear. With certainty. In that moment something shifted. The arrogant smile vanished. Confidence cracked. The man realized too late. This was not a helpless passenger. Steven did not pull away. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He simply stood there, balanced, grounded. The grip on his collar suddenly felt foolish. The attacker hesitated, but pride would not let him release. He raised his other hand, preparing to strike. A flight attendant cried out. Passengers braced. Steven spoke again. Quietly. "Let go." The words carried weight. Not loud. Not aggressive. Final. The man ignored the warning. That choice sealed his fate. The cabin air felt tight, as if the plane itself was holding its breath. Everyone knew. Something was about to happen. The arrogant passenger had crossed every line. Public. Physical. Irreversible. Fear rippled through the rows. Not for Steven, but for the man who still did not understand. Hands still gripping fabric. Heart pounding. Ego screaming. He had no idea what he had awakened. The calm man he attacked was calm by choice, not by weakness. And the cabin, frozen in fear, was about to witness the difference between noise and power, between arrogance and discipline, between a bully and a master. The conflict was no longer avoidable. The moment had arrived, and there would be no turning back. Flight attendants rushed down the aisle shouting for calm. Their voices overlapped. Orders echoed. Hands reached out. Passengers screamed. Some stood up. Others pressed back into their seats. Phones came out instinctively. Red lights blinked. Recording began. The aisle narrowed. The space felt smaller, tighter, charged. The attacker's breathing grew loud, uneven, fueled by pride and rage. He tightened his grip for one last show of dominance. Then he swung. A wild punch. Fast, uncontrolled, thrown with anger, not skill. In that instant Steven stood up slowly. No panic, no rush. He removed his headphones with care, set them on his seat, straightened his jacket. The contrast stunned everyone, while chaos exploded around him. He moved as if time obeyed him. The punch came closer, too close. Then it stopped. In one smooth movement Steven raised his arm. His block was simple, efficient, precise. The impact made a dull sound. Not dramatic, not loud, but decisive. The attacker froze. His eyes widened. Pain shot through his wrist. Confusion followed. He had expected resistance, fear, struggle. He found none. Steven stepped forward slightly, his balance perfect, his stance grounded. Passengers gasped. The cabin went quiet again. The attacker tried to pull back, but his arm did not move. Steven had control, without force, without spectacle. A flight attendant whispered, "What is happening?" The attacker panicked. He tried to swing with his other hand. Steven shifted his weight, turned his shoulder, redirected the motion. The second strike never landed. The movement was fluid, almost invisible, like water finding its path. The attacker stumbled, off balance. His confidence shattered. He finally understood. Too late. This was not a lucky block. This was training. Years of discipline. Muscle memory built through countless hours. Steven did not strike back. He did not need to. Control replaced violence. Passengers leaned forward, eyes wide, breaths held. Phones continued recording, but hands shook. The attacker struggled, trying to free himself, but every movement made it worse. Steven spoke calmly, low, clear. "Sit down." The command carried authority, not volume. The attacker's knees buckled. Pain and fear took over. Flight attendants stopped shouting. They stared. One whispered, "That man knows exactly what he is doing." The cabin felt unreal, as if a storm had paused mid-strike. Children stopped crying. Adults stopped yelling. Only silence remained. The attacker looked around, desperate, ashamed, terrified. He realized the truth. He had attacked the wrong person. Steven adjusted his grip, not to hurt, to end it. In seconds, the fight was over. No punches thrown, No chaos escalated. Just control. Passengers began to whisper. Names. Questions. Recognition. Someone gasped. That is Steven Seagal. The words spread. Row by row. The attacker heard it. His face drained of color. A martial arts champion. A master. A man trained for moments like this. Steven released him carefully. Stepped back. He did not celebrate. He did not glare. He simply stood there, calm as before. The flight attendants regained their senses. They moved in, separated the attacker, called for security procedures. Passengers exhaled together, as if waking from a dream. The escalation had ended, not with violence, but with discipline. The attacker had learned. In the worst way, strength does not announce itself. It reveals itself. And inside that crowded daytime cabin, everyone had just witnessed the moment arrogance meets reality. Steven moved with absolute control. No anger, no hesitation, no wasted motion. He shifted his stance and applied a clean joint lock. Precise, measured, final. The attacker lost balance instantly. His strength vanished. His body followed the command before his mind could react. In one smooth motion, Steven guided him down. Not slammed, not thrown, placed. The man hit the floor hard enough to feel reality, soft enough to avoid real injury. A sharp breath left his lungs. Shock froze his face. His eyes stared upward, confused and defeated. The fight was over. Steven stepped back, hands open, posture relaxed. No threat remained. The cabin was silent. Not a scream. Not a word. Every passenger stared. A flight attendant covered her mouth. Her voice broke the silence. That is Steven Seagal. The name moved faster than sound. Row to row. Seat to seat. Heads turned. Eyes widened. Phones lifted higher. Steven Seagal. The martial arts champion. The man known for discipline, not chaos. Whispers filled the air. But softly now. Respectfully. That is him. No way. I cannot believe it. The attacker heard the name. His face drained of color. His bravado disappeared. The truth hit harder than the floor. He had attacked a man trained to end violence. A master of control. A living example of restraint. Steven did not look at him with pride. He did not shame him. He did not say a word. That silence was heavier than any insult. Flight attendants finally moved. They checked the attacker. They asked Steven if he was hurt. He nodded calmly. I am fine. No anger. No complaint. The attacker tried to sit up. Pain reminded him to stay down. Passengers watched closely. Some in awe. Some in disbelief. They had expected chaos. They witnessed discipline. Someone whispered, "He could have destroyed him." Another replied, "But he did not." That difference mattered. The captain was informed. Security procedures activated. The plane remained steady. Steven returned to his seat, picked up his headphones, placed them gently around his neck, as if nothing had happened. The attacker was restrained. No longer loud. No longer arrogant. Only silent. The cabin slowly breathed again. People lowered their phones. Parents hugged their children. A man in a nearby seat shook his head. That was real strength. The flight attendants exchanged looks. They understood they had seen something rare. Not power, but control. Steven looked out the window. Sunlight still filled the cabin. The day had not changed, but everyone inside had. The reveal was complete. Not announced. Not explained. It revealed itself. Not through words, but through action. The attacker learned a lesson he would never forget. Silence is not weakness. Calm is not fear. And legends do not need to prove themselves. Backhand index pointing right. Should Steven defend himself or walk away? Comment defend or walk away. The answers would say more about the world than the fight ever could. The attacker's confidence was completely gone. His body shook. His breathing was uneven. Fear had replaced arrogance. He looked up at Steven with wide eyes. Voice cracking. Hands raised in surrender. "I am sorry. Please." The words came fast and desperate. Steven stood over him calmly. No anger in his face. No satisfaction in his eyes. He lowered his stance slightly, loosened the hold, then released him. Slow, controlled, intentional. The attacker collapsed back against the floor. Not hurt, just broken by the reality of his actions. Steven stepped away, creating distance, creating safety. Flight attendants moved in immediately, their training finally catching up to the moment. They asked Steven again if he needed help. Medical attention. Water. Anything. He shook his head. "I am fine. No drama. No demands." The attacker stayed silent now. Head down. Hands trembling. 2 attendants guided him to a seat. Kept him restrained. Kept him monitored. The plane continued its flight. Engines steady. Sky unchanged. But inside the cabin, everything felt different. Passengers whispered. Not excited. Not loud. Respectful. A man across the aisle nodded toward Steven. A woman mouthed the word thank you. Parents held their children closer. Relief spread slowly. Steven returned to his seat. Adjusted his jacket. Sat down. Like nothing had happened. He placed his headphones back on. Looked forward. Calm as before. The contrast stayed powerful. The man who caused chaos now restrained. The man who ended it now silent. When the plane finally landed, the wheels touched the runway smoothly. The cabin stayed seated. Quiet. Watchful. Security officers boarded quickly. Professional. Focused. They approached the attacker. Informed him calmly. Placed him in handcuffs. He did not resist. He could not. As he was escorted away, he glanced back once. Steven did not look at him. That absence of attention hurt more than any blow. Passengers watched the removal. No cheers. No insults. Just quiet approval. Then something unexpected happened. A soft applause began. One person. Then another. Not loud. Not celebratory. Respectful. It spread through the cabin briefly. Then stopped. Steven did not react. He did not acknowledge it. He remained seated. Headphones on. Eyes forward. Flight attendants thanked him quietly. One said, "You handled that perfectly." Steven nodded. That is how it should be handled. Passengers exited the plane. Many glanced at him. Some smiled. Some nodded. No one crowded him. No one asked for photos. They understood. True strength does not seek recognition. Steven stood last. Took his bag. Walked off calmly. The day continued outside. Bright. Normal. But for everyone on that flight, the lesson stayed. Arrogance creates danger. Discipline ends it. The resolution was simple. No revenge. No punishment delivered by fists. Just control. Just consequence. And a quiet reminder. Power does not need noise. Respect does not need fear. Steven Seagal left the plane the same way he entered it. Unnoticed. Unbothered. In control. Strength does not need noise. It does not shout. It does not threaten. It does not demand attention. True power stays controlled. It listens. It waits. It chooses restraint over reaction. What happened on that plane was not about fighting. It was about character. One man used his voice to dominate. The other used his discipline to protect. That difference matters. Respect is not something you give based on clothes, status, or appearance. Respect is something you give because you are human. The arrogant passenger believed strength meant being loud, being feared, being seen. He learned the hard way. That real strength often sits quietly. Steven Seagal did not seek conflict. He avoided it. He endured disrespect. He gave warnings. Only when there was no other option. He acted. And when he did, he acted with control. That is the lesson. Anyone can lose their temper. Anyone can throw a punch. Anyone can escalate. Very few can stay calm. Very few can choose restraint. Very few can end chaos without becoming part of it. Respect everyone, especially strangers. Not because they might be famous. Not because they might be powerful. But because dignity should not depend on discovery. The person you mock today may be the one who saves you tomorrow. The person you look down on may be the one who teaches you humility. Silence is not weakness. Calm is not fear. Patience is not submission. They are signs of mastery. In a world that rewards noise, the quiet ones stand out. In moments of pressure, true character reveals itself. That plane was just a setting. The story applies everywhere. On the street, at work, in public places, online. How you treat others when you think no one important is watching. That is who you really are. Steven walked away without pride, without revenge, without ego, because real strength does not need validation. The applause faded. The cameras turned off. But the lesson stayed. Control is power. Respect is strength. Humility is dominance. If this story made you think, if it reminded you to stay calm, if it reinforced the value of respect, backhand index pointing right, type respect if you believe calm is real strength. And tell me your country, so I can thank every kind soul personally, because the world needs more control, more humility, and more respect, now more than ever.